Hey, it's Diana from Diana Marie Home, and today this video is all about this cabinet that's behind me. So if you don't already follow me on Instagram, I've been sharing behind the scenes of this cabinet. My in-laws got it for me as a Christmas gift because they knew I was looking for something just like this for this space. And on Instagram, I've just been sharing, day to day the process of changing this from what it used to be to what it is now. So be sure to follow me there, Diana Marie Home, on Instagram, and to see more of that kind of content. But today we're going to see a whole overcap of what this cabinet looked like when I got it and what it is now. And then I'm also going to be talking about my Ironstone collection and where I find pieces of Ironstone if you are interested in starting your own collection. So I feel like for this video we really have to take a step back and kind of start from the beginning of this space in our kitchen. So we bought our farmhouse about 2 years ago now, and it's an 1800s farmhouse, but this kitchen definitely is not original. The previous owner actually completely renovated this space around 2005, I believe, and the kitchen is fully functional, a lot of nice appliances, and we really can't complain, but it is definitely not the layout and design choices that I would have chosen had I had the opportunity to completely restore this kitchen. But because we have so much going on and so many other spaces that really need attention before, this kitchen that is functioning, we decided we weren't going to be putting money into completely redoing a space that was functional. It didn't make sense for us at this point. So instead, what I decided to do was make some cosmetic changes just to make it fit the feel of our home more. So before I talk about the phases of, facelifts of this kitchen, I want to take a second to go back to what this kitchen looked like when we first bought our home. So I'm going to put clips of that in right here. So from that you can see, first off, the countertops were red. They were just laminate countertops that were very red, and for my style, if you follow me, it's very neutral, and that didn't fit in. So one of the very first things we did when we moved in, before we got all of our kitchen things, before I started moving those in, I painted the laminate countertops a light gray color, and we also installed a vintage cast iron sink that I found for free on Craigslist, and that gave more of a farmhouse feel to the space. And that's all we did for a really long time. Just those simple changes made all the difference for the time being. So I'll put a picture or two of that in here so you can see what it looked like after the painted countertops and sink went in. So because there is so much to do in our farmhouse, that was what the kitchen looked like for a good year and a half until this last summer when I painted the kitchen from ceiling to floor. One day I have big plans for this farmhouse kitchen, but for now the cosmetic changes have made all the difference and have really helped me to enjoy the space more. I spend a lot of time in the kitchen because I love to cook, and so just paint has gone a long way in here. The ceiling is the original beadboard ceiling, and so I just restored that by sanding down the chipping paint in areas that was peeling off and priming that, painting that. I painted I primed all of the trim. Little secret, still have to finish painting the trim in here. And then I painted all of the cabinets, which was a pretty big job in my opinion. I took all the doors off, took all the handles off, and you know, sanded those, primed them, painted them with my spray gun, and reinstalled them. So that was a bigger job than I was expecting. Got new hardware for all the doors and drawers, and I also painted the floors. They're tile floor. Again, they were, you know, they're great floor. They were very dark and they stood out in our farmhouse in a way I didn't want them to, and so I decided to paint them against a lot of people's suggestions, I guess you could say, and I'm so glad that I did. Yes, they chip. Painting tile floors, they will chip, but because I didn't mind the colors that the floors were, it was just too much color for me. I actually really like the look, and so I have those pretty muted colors coming up underneath the chips of the lighter floors, and I just think it adds to that farmhouse feel. So I will share some pictures here of what the space looked like after all of that painting. Oh, and I forgot to mention that I also repainted the countertops when I did that, because although I liked the lighter countertops, when I was really looking at the vision for the whole kitchen when I was painting everything, I wanted a darker countertop to blend in the black appliances that were here, which it actually worked really well doing that. So everything got paint. I will share pictures of what that looked like here. So in those pictures, you might have noticed this spot. I am on the back wall of the kitchen right now. In between the two windows, there's this empty space, and between the counter ends right here and then the wall, you know, by the windows, it's a really wide space, unnecessarily large and kind of wasted space, to be honest. So there's room to put a little table or something where I'm standing, but between the windows is very narrow, so it made it hard to find something that would really fit in there well. And so for a long time, you could see in those pictures, I had a antique table that I painted black with a mug rack above it, and that worked really well to make that space functional for the time being. But something that I had always dreamed of was having my collection of Ironstone displayed in my kitchen. So it was about 6 years ago I started collecting Ironstone pieces, and I just collected them here and there as I found them, just mismatched pieces. And as my collection grew, I really dreamed of being able to display that antique Ironstone in my farmhouse kitchen one day. Now this was long before we had our farmhouse. I started collecting Ironstone when we lived in a loft apartment in a town far away from where we live. We were living there because I was in grad school. Kurt had a job out that way, so we had several moves since then, and it was years after that before we actually found this farmhouse. So that collection grew along with my dream of being able to display it in that farmhouse that I had longed for so long. And so having, you know, my collection displayed in this kitchen is just a representation of that dream that I had for years and years coming true. So this is really special to me in ways that, you know, go beyond just a cabinet with some dinnerware in it. So this cabinet specifically we found on Facebook Marketplace. My mother-in-law knew that I was looking for a display cabinet to put in this space, and how the measurements were really difficult to find a piece that would work, because I try to find older pieces for our older farmhouse. There really isn't too much new furniture in our home, and it was really tricky finding something that would fit in this space. And even this cabinet is a little wide, but when I measured it out when I found it on Facebook Marketplace, and I used painter's tape to tape out the outline so I could see exactly where it would go. And even though it doesn't fit the space perfectly per se, I felt like it was that perfect kind of quirky farmhouse fit where it's not perfect, but it is, because it's an old farmhouse and that's almost how it's meant to be. And that's exactly how I feel now that it's here. I just feel like it is absolutely perfect for this space, and it allows me to display that collection of Ironstone that I've been working on for so long and have been wanting to display. And up until now, it's been hidden away in a cabinet where no one could see it, and that was sad to me because it was just it's such a beautiful collection, and to have it hidden away it's just a shame. So we found this piece on Facebook Marketplace, and when I found it, it was blue, which again, great color, but not in our home, didn't match the colors I already had going in here. So I will post a picture of what that looked like here. So even though it wasn't the color I was looking for, it was the size and style I was looking for, so it was perfect. I knew I could fix it with a few layers of paint, which is exactly what I did. I used Fusion Mineral paint in the color Raw Silk for the outside, and then on the inside I used the color Putty, and I absolutely love those colors together. It was the first time I had used that color combination together, and I absolutely love it. So now I'm already thinking of other projects I can use those paint colors on together. Also, when we bought the cabinet, the shelves, there are 3 shelves inside, and the middle one was centered, but then the top and bottom one were not centered. And so part of the restoration of this cabinet involved cutting those shelves out because they were nailed in from the outside on all 3 sides. So I had to cut those out, and then we had to reinstall those, so now they're center with these glass panes, which I think looks a lot better. So yeah, that was part of it, was moving the shelves and then painting it. So since it was such a dark color, I primed it and then added, I think it was about 2 coats of paint on the outside after the primer, and then a third kind of touch-up, and then the inside took 1 coat with a touch-up coat as well, because the putty is a darker color. But I'm really happy with how it turned out, and I will put a clip of painting the inside of it here for you to see that process. So once the piece was all painted and finished, it was ready to be brought into the kitchen. This is what I was so excited for, and before I did that, I realized I was putting this on top of a heat register or heat vent that couldn't be covered, and I didn't really think of it because there was a table there before. So it was fine. So I ended up putting it on some casters that I had, which raised the whole hutch about 2 inches, which is exactly what I needed for this little mechanism that I found. I will put a link to it, but it's basically a plastic cover that you can put over a heat vent to direct the airflow to go out from underneath a piece of furniture, and that has worked perfectly. So that was the solution to that problem. So I'll link that. I think it's about $20 on Amazon. I'll link that if you're having a similar situation where you want to put a piece of furniture somewhere but you have a heat vent there. Once it was brought into the kitchen, it was ready to be filled with Ironstone, and this was my favorite part. So I actually filmed this whole video the other day, and when I went to edit the video I realized the audio didn't save, which is why we are back today. So hopefully second time's a charm here. But I will share the clip of me filling the cabinet with my Ironstone collection. So seeing this cabinet that I put so much time and energy into making it fit the style of our home with the collection of Ironstone that I've been working on for over 6 years is just an absolute dream. And if you are thinking about collecting Ironstone, I wanted to share some of my tips so that you can get your collection started. So there are a lot of different types of Ironstone and a lot of different ages and a lot of different origins. Now, I don't know everything about it, but I'll tell you what I look for when I am collecting Ironstone pieces. So I'll start with the newer, easy to find Ironstone. Now this might not technically be Ironstone, but it looks like Ironstone, and it's like that restaurant ware, or the plates that you commonly see in restaurants. That's what we actually have for our dinnerware. I believe this is from Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if they still sell them. It's just Buffalo China is the brand from the back. I'll look to see if I can't find this or something similar to it to link, but this was recent. We got this. But this was on our wedding registry. We have the bowls, smaller plates, and coffee mugs, and this is what we use for our everyday dinnerware, and we love it, and it matches my older Ironstone collection. You can also find dinnerware like this at thrift stores for super cheap, like old restaurant ware. I actually got some smaller plates that are in between this size and the small saucers that we have. They're really nice, like medium-sized dinner plate, and I found those at a thrift store for I think 10 cents each. So I'm always looking for stuff like that for dinnerware that we're actually using every day, where we haven't actually had one break yet, but it's, you know, I wouldn't be super sad if something like this broke compared to one of my antique pieces. And then when I'm looking for pieces to add to my collection of Ironstone that's more for special occasions, or Ironstone that I display, I'm looking for more older pieces. Now, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about Ironstone, but from the research that I did, I know that there's Ironstone that comes from China or Japan, and then there's older Ironstone that comes from England, and then there's older Ironstone that was made in America when people started coming over to America. And from what I've found, a lot of times that early Ironstone is unmarked, and then the American Ironstone companies started developing their names. So once you start collecting Ironstone, you'll start seeing the same company names and become familiar with those. To kind of narrow down my collection, I choose to only collect English Ironstone or unmarked Ironstone, or the Ironstone that was produced in America. And some things that you can look for that is just underneath pieces of Ironstone. This is an example of English Ironstone. Now sometimes English Ironstone will say China on it because it's called, you know, China. It is China, but it's not from China if it says England or English Ironstone on it. So those marked pieces are definitely something to look for. You'll often find those at antique stores, but I've found a lot of great pieces at estate sales, and sometimes you'll find them at thrift stores if you're lucky, and sometimes even like yard sales or garage sales if you're really lucky. I've had some of my best luck with finding collectible ironstone pieces at estate sales from other people who have collected ironstone and are downsizing. The other thing that I look for is crazing on pieces. Now this is a piece that you know, some people might not have bought because it is in a pretty rough shape. You can see the crack and there's chips on the bottom, but I just absolutely love the shape of this picture, the handle, and then the crazing, which are those lines in the glaze of the ironstone. And this one in particular, those lines are darkened by the discoloration at the top. I love things like that. Now I don't use this for serving, but I love this displayed in the cabinet, and I use it a lot in the spring and summer for displaying flowers. So I don't pass pieces like this up, especially if the price is right on them. This one I got for a couple dollars. I found it in the basement of an estate sale. So this was a no-brainer for me. It's hard to say what price to look for ironstone pieces because the prices are going to vary depending on where you're shopping, your location. You know, it can vary state by state or even country by country. It's going to be likely more expensive at antique stores compared to thrift stores or estate sales. So it's hard to give a price range, and it's really, in my opinion, comes down to your personal preference. If it's a piece that you really love and it speaks to you, then I'm willing to spend a little more money on that to add to my collection because you probably won't come across it again. But you know, you just have to make your own decisions. Ironstone cake stands are really hard to come by, and I actually found 2 at an estate sale, but they were well over $200, which for some that might be a good deal, but it was just not in my price range, and I couldn't justify spending that much on a cake stand that I'd be too scared to use. So you just have to be comfortable with what you're buying and the price you're paying, and try to find pieces that you really love and add those to your collection. Also, once people know that you're collecting ironstone, you will probably be gifted some pieces. Some of my favorite pieces have been gifted to me, like this pot down here. My Kurt's grandma just gave to me for my birthday, and that's such a special piece to me, and you know, those gifted pieces mean a lot as well. So those are the different places that I find ironstone. If you are wondering how to get started with thrifting and antiquing and finding antiques on a budget, I wrote a whole ebook sharing the tricks that I've learned over the years, and I will put a link to that in my description below, but it's a free ebook that you can download and read through. There's a lot of tips in there, a lot of things that I've learned and where to look and how, so be sure to check that out to get started. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today as we took a trip down memory lane of our farmhouse kitchen and looked at the progress we've made in here with pretty much just paint, and looking at the restoration of this cabinet, and then talking about the ironstone collection and how you could get one started as well if that's something that you're thinking about doing. I hope that you found the tips helpful. Thank you again for hanging out with me. Be sure to follow along on Instagram for more day-to-day, but then you can also find me on my blog, dianamarieholm.com, where I share a lot of helpful resources and more about our farm life, fixer-upper life, DIY, gardening, you know, everything in between. I look forward to seeing you on my next video.